Chapter 14. We did the 250-mile trip with one pit stop to refuel and stretch our bones, so when we pulled up across the street from the newly remodeled Americana Theater in Stillwater, Oklahoma, the engine of the bus was still warm. A black stretch limo sat across 3 parking spaces, which gave pause to Frank's claims of cost-cutting and belt-tightening. Marty checked his watch and called out the time. If we waited it out 30 minutes, then most of the boys should be clear of the arteries of the building, giving us freedom to do what needed to be done. The pair of us rolling up in Pawnee Rock and dying thanks to an unconvincing work was one thing. If Brick had anything to do with Nina's death, us tailing the company across state lines was going to start sending up warning rockets that even a thick-headed wrestler could see. Event security was still a few hours away from arriving, so as long as I didn't run into anyone, I knew then a giant man with bum knees and a bad neck roaming the halls shouldn't arouse anyone's suspicion. Marty was eager to know the plan. I told him it. We were going to go in when they were chowing down to get what we needed as quickly as possible, without alerting Brick to our presence. As I climbed from the car, my pager went off, so I walked down the block to a payphone and called the number that scrolled across the dimly lit LED screen. "Those fuckers embalmed her, Jack," screeched Cassie. "They what?" "When you said you didn't think it was how she died, I had someone based in Santa Barbara call Burlington to arrange for Nina to be shipped back for our own autopsy. She's arrived today, but they've embalmed her." My heart and stomach felt like they'd switched places. I wanted to tear the phone block out of the concrete and beat someone with it. Those goddamn bastards. Cassie added that they said, "It was something they did when a body had a long journey for an out-of-state funeral." This could have been true. It could have been preferable to slapping some stamps on her ass and sending her through the post, but it still riled me up. To them, this was the matter resolved. But it was far from resolved. Not for Cassie, who sobbed in my ear, and not for me. "Did Nina ever mention a guy called Dawson or Brick around you?" I asked Cassie. "I think she might have said Brick, but no, I guess not really," she said. I reassured Cassie that this wasn't over. I hadn't given up, and I wouldn't until I knew exactly what had happened, which settled us both enough that we were able to exchange goodbyes before hanging up. I crossed the street, which triggered Marty's exodus from the rental car that was costing me more per day than it was probably worth in scrap metal. He spied the frustration that lingered on from Cassie's call and knew enough to know 2 things. 1, don't ask, and 2, no, I don't want to talk about it right now. We headed backstage and waited in the technical storage area until it got to lunchtime. Wrestlers did 2 things for certain, together, showered and ate. As it got to chow time, we headed towards the locker room and started popping cabinets. We'd know Brick's locker from the ridiculous jacket he'd been wearing when we tailed him. I reminded Marty of the last 4 digits of the card we were looking for. You had your work life and your home life, and where possible, they stayed separate. You wouldn't use a work credit card when you were home, as that could affect an unknown night some 2,000 miles down the road, so Brick would have used that card in Burlington without thinking. Marty called me over. He'd found it. We took down the information that wasn't on the receipt and made our escape, but as we turned out of the locker room, Jericho was on his way in. He saw Marty first, then me, then the row of lockers we had busted open. "What's going on, Jack?" Jericho asked. I shrugged my shoulders. "I lent the kid my watch, and I forgot to get it back after the show." Jericho looked the room over again. "Whatever you say," offered Jericho. "We're going to go now, Jer," Marty offered. "Safe home, then," he replied. We left the Art Deco theater with our tails pinned to the inside of our legs. Whether he said anything or not was out of our hands. We crossed back to the payphones, and I quickly dialed the telephone number on the back of the card. Hi, this is Brick Hansen, card number 5999123122223414. Yes, I'm changing accountants and was hoping you could give me a list of my last half-dozen transactions. The last week or so would be fine. Expiry date is March 1990, I said. The lady on the other end of the line spelt it out, chapter and verse. Single night stays all along Interstate 70. A handful of multiple charges in various strip clubs. A mail order purchase of 100 boxes of condoms, but no double night stay in Burlington. I hung up and sighed to Marty that the kid was clean. I should have been pleased about this, but all it had done was waste another day and took us further away from finding out what happened to our friend. I was running out of time, road, money, and options, and not necessarily in that order. Marty pitched that the best idea was to head back to Los Angeles and start digging into the shell of the life that Nina had left behind, which was as good an idea as I'd heard since I left for Puerto Rico. I drove him southwest to El Reno so he could hop a budget bird back to one of LA's smaller airports and skip LAX altogether. I had a 10-hour drive back to Denver to look forward to, with only a return to Burlington to keep me entertained. It was late by the time I rolled back through Burlington, and I looked out at the Burley as I cruised by. It had been reset and swallowed up by normality again. 6 of its car park-facing rooms sat bright and full of promise. I parked up along Country Road, which sat to the rear of the PD building, and found a payphone that hadn't been vandalized. I phoned through to the precinct and asked to speak to Officer Suarez. I gave them the line about my apartment block, her card, and any more information, and was promptly connected. "This is Suarez," she answered. "Officer Suarez, my name is Jack Gecko. I'm a private investigator," I said, leaving out the bit where I was miles from my jurisdiction. "You were first on the scene at a suspected OD at the Burley the other day." I was greeted by some dead air. "Officer Suarez, can you hear me?" I asked. "I can indeed, sir, thank you," she responded dryly. "You can't talk?" "Absolutely," she confirmed. "There's a gym 2 blocks from your precinct. Meet me there tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. You have yourself a good night. Thanks for calling." The evening had a chill to it. There was an ominousness to the air. The optimist would say it was fall on its way to crisp leaves and turn everything copper. I opted for caution and slept in my car rather than hand over my ID to anyone in town. In the morning, I got to the gym 40 minutes early to get a set in before Celine Suarez arrived. Like most things in town, it was a pared-back version of what you'd see in a busy metropolis. I kept to the weights room and watched the reflection of the clock in the floor-to-ceiling mirror as the building slowly welcomed those who couldn't keep themselves fit through farm or factory work. When 7 a.m. had passed, I gathered my stuff and went downstairs to the reception. There was a tall, dark-haired woman standing in the parking lot with her eyes locked on the entrance. I walked towards her, and as I did, I heard 2 car doors open behind me. Fuck, it was always a possibility that I was getting fitted up, that they had a BOLO out on my rental plates and spotted me creeping back into town. I waited for the verbal warning to bellow behind me, but instead there was a sudden, blunt pain at the back of my knee which had given out and was sending me hurtling towards the ground. I got my hands out in time to stop myself from eating concrete. A second thud came crashing down on my lower back. As I lay on the ground, 2 more car doors opened. Soon there were 4 of them over me in police blues, but without any identifying badges, and with balaclavas disguising their features. They each sent 2 good licks my way before they dragged me back to my vehicle. The two larger boys wrestled me to my feet. They could skip arms day after this. They opened the rear passenger door and dropped my ass inside. By this stage I had recovered, but played lame as I wanted to see where this was going. I'd suspected if they wanted to kill me, they wouldn't have come at me in daylight in a gymnasium parking lot. So there was a message coming at the end of this, and I was curious to see who was holding the envelope. I opened my eyes and tried to map where we were headed. Before the sky I could see through the passenger window closed over, and we entered a covered parking lot. That put us in one of 3 spots around Burlington. When the car came to a halt, the cop driving my rental got out from behind the wheel, dragged me out of the back seat, and cuffed me before walking me across the dank basement level to a prowl car that was, seemingly, waiting on me. He put me in the back and walked off. The vehicle was empty, the engine off and the radio slumbering. After what must have been only a few minutes, a third car arrived. It was a Lincoln Continental, a non-uniform cop car that screamed, "Non-uniform cop car." The suspension sighed as it raised and relaxed when a man as round as a meatball dragged himself free of its tight-fitting cabin. He had the kind of face that looked like it was keeping a secret inside of all the cholesterol it was storing. He lit himself a cigarette, smoking it casually to the filter, before he dropped it at his feet and rambled his way over to me. He came into the back seat alongside me, and as he pressed up against me, I could feel his circulation issues through his cold suit trousers. 2 of the cops that had beaten me down emerged from the shadows. They were no longer wearing masks, but their uniforms were still missing badges and bars. Both men climbed into the front of the vehicle and sat eyes forward like well-trained guard dogs. "I hear you've been up and down my town causing trouble," the meatball said. I met his eye in the rear view and said, "Whoever your informant is, you're paying them too much. They're feeding you a load of shit. I'm a private investigator looking into the mysterious death of a good friend of mine. You're an L.A. dick out of his pond running his mouth and sullying the name of my hometown. This town survives because of its good reputation. Your friend's death was a tragic accident. I see you around here again, and yours will be neither of those things. Do you understand me?" "I understand you," I said. "Officers Johnson and Richards here are gonna escort you to Denver Airport." The suspension sighed with relief as the rotund pit bull wrestled himself free of the back seat and waddled his way back to his own vehicle. Johnson and Richards kept me cuffed for the drive from Burlington to Denver Airport. I asked them what would happen to my rental car, and they told me not to worry about that. I asked them if they'd noticed that both their surnames were slang for dicks, and there was a moment among the silence where one, if not both of them, thought about shooting me. In the end, the prospect of cleaning me off their black leather seats was too unappealing, and they let my rhetorical fade into non-existence. Once at the airport, they pulled me from the vehicle, uncuffed me, and walked me to the ticket desk where I traded in the last of my air miles for a flight home.